Welcome to another episode of Rod Goes Vlog. Today is Saturday, the 7th of September 2024. And in today's episode, I want to talk about Interview with the Vampire, a TV show, of course, based on a very well known movie and series of books, and also about how everything needs to be today a universe, a saga, a series. It's not anymore possible to just be a single story, a single movie, a single book. It has to be bombastic. And actually, this is the second recording for today's video, because in the previous one, I made a massive mistake that, that made me rethink and say, hey, I need to record this video again. I will tell you what happened. Let's get started. Interview with Vampire. For those who do not know it, it is a series. It actually is the name of a book called like that, Interview with the Vampire. But it's a book series about a vampire called Lestat. The most famous product of this series is the movie from the mid-90s with Tom Cruise, Brad Pitt, Christian Slater, Kirsten Dunst, pretty much a who is who of the 90s, 2000s cinema. And what I didn't know was that just about 2 years ago, in 2022, a TV show premiered. Originally, I thought, hey, this is like a money making machine that the creator and Rice wanted to maximize as much as possible. But what I didn't know was that actually she already passed away. So she died in 2021. I had no idea about that. And in my previous video, I thought that she was still alive. So I was making comments about why she decided to do it now and so on. But no. And the story behind the TV show has a much longer record, in that already since 2016, so by now 8 years, she was trying to make her work, this Lestat series, into a TV series. And as is often the case, well, the rights get auctioned, there is some competition, then there is development hell, it gets passed from one chain to the other, and so on. So finally, it premiered in 2022 in AMC, famous for Walking Dead, this very long, so very popular, very famous zombie series, also Breaking Bad, and many others that have appeared on AMC over the years. This is the first season. There have been two more. Today I start watching the first episode. I haven't even finished it, but I want already to share with you some thoughts and maybe like some comments about it. The TV show has been adjusted to modern times, where whereas in the movie by Brad Pitt and in the book and so on, this is a slave owner in a plantation in the so in what year was that? It was like the 1700s. In this adaptation is rather a Creole mixed race man, a black man, in the early 20,000th century, who is a pimp living in New Orleans and somehow becoming a vampire. Not only that, but the interviewer, who in the movie was Christian Slater, now how it's told is that in fact they already had an encounter, and this interview was not published, and they're reconnecting during the pandemic. It's fun and interesting to see how this show was made during the pandemic and later released shortly after, because how they explain things about the pandemic and well, how society works and so on is very, very different to, well, how we see today. Just in 2 years, the world has changed, and really seeing anything pandemic related today feels so anachronic and so from another time. Very, very different. But nevertheless, the story is pretty much set like that. Also, whereas in the movie, this homoerotic, bisexual nature of this vampire it's not really shown. It's not. Maybe you can notice it through the visuals, but it's not really told or discussed during the movie. Here, apparently, in this show, it plays a much more larger role. So in general, it's really adapted to our current times of trying to have a diverse cast, trying to have diverse stories and so on. And it has been both commercially as well as critically well received. If I'm not mistaken, it has like 98% of Rotten Tomatoes. And now, well, there was the first season, they did also a second season, and the third season should be coming soon. Not only that, but also this is part of a so-called immortal universe. So if you thought, oh, there were like 18 books of Anne Rice about Lestat and so on, and we'll have a lot of vampire stories for years to come, well, don't despair, because also there have been adaptations of other novels about witches and other stories from Anne Rice that are now part of this AMC universe called the Immortal Universe. And this brings me to the main topic of today's discussion. So, where the days where just one story was enough, they do not longer exist. These days, everything is to be not only a saga with multiple sequels, but it has to be in all possible media available: movies, books, TV series, and so on. So, it's really the only way how you can feel good, maybe as a creator, is if you have this money machine that you exploit until it stops giving you money. And of course, if Anne Rice was so successful and was able to create this well known, very popular, very well received saga, well, better for her, so to monetize as much as possible. But I feel a bit bad for everyone else who, on one side, is not able to monetize this, but also who has to compete for the attention, the time, and just the minds of the viewers, where in the end, we only have 24 hours, right? And there are so many things that we as viewers can consume that in the end is the question: do we really need a retelling of Interview with the Vampire? Or maybe there's opportunity for new stories, new faces, new creators to tell something new, something fresh. And also, this is a little bit what we're seeing in this fight for attention between, for example, YouTube. At this is a massive content machine, primarily with indie, independent creators, small creators, versus traditional media like Netflix, Hulu, and so on, that have rather high-end, high-cost productions. Of course, it's not an exact rule, a golden rule that in YouTube you find only scrappy, so low budget series, whereas in something like Netflix or in this case AMC, you'll find high end, because the counterexample are the Mr. Beast videos, where it's estimated that each video cost about the same as the Game of Thrones episodes that were released 1 decade ago. So you can see how YouTube has become also much more high end, much more high budget. But nevertheless, the rule remains that YouTube is low budget, like this video, and something like Interview with the Vampire on AMC is high budget. And both are competing for a few minutes of you, the viewer, and you have to decide what do you prefer. I wish and I hope that we can start pushing away from the sagas, the established media, and so on, and then look into new stories, look into new ideas, and so on. It's starting to happen a little bit because if you think about it, superhero movies, Star Wars movies, and so on, they do not seem to be doing that well. So, this idea that every year there can be a superhero movie, Star Wars movie, or another well known franchise, and it will generate 1 billion in revenue, and it will be the story of the year, it will be what everyone will be talking about for months. This is not really happening anymore. And we are seeing how, for these very expensive established franchises, they need to think about new ideas, how they can monetize them. So it's starting to happen, But nevertheless, I still feel that we live in a day and age where it feels that the only thing that gets produced are established names. We discussed it in a previous episode about Alien Romulus and how it is a good story, but do we really need another Alien movie? And not only that, but also, wasn't this the first story just enough? In the end, it's just a basic, let's say, like horror house in space. Well, same thing happens here. Have you seen Interview with Vampire? I will continue watching it and I will report my impressions and what I think about it. But what about you? Will you watch it? Or do you think that you don't really need to see it again and better you might want to rewatch the 90s movie that was really not only a cult classic, but also it pretty much made most of their cast a household name. For example, Kirsten Dunst, that was, I think, her breakthrough role. And even today, 30 years later, is still a very watchable, very fun, very well done, very entertaining movie. So, what about you? Interview with Vampire, TV show, movie, books, or not at all, and you prefer to watch YouTube videos? Let me know in the comments, and as usual, remember to like, subscribe, give your opinion, and see you tomorrow for another episode of Rod Goes Vlog. Until next time!